All right. So I'm Riley. Yeah. This is my presentation on post-graduation financial readiness. So the three main things I'm going to be talking about are student loan repayment, budgeting, and saving for retirement. So the three most important things I think you have to think about right after you graduate when you really get your first job. So for student loan repayment, most people have student loans. Pretty much everyone I know has a student loan, so everyone's going to have to be repaying those eventually. And the first type of repayment is just a standard repayment. That's what you get if you don't choose any other kind of repayment. It's for 10 years, and you get the lowest amount of interest if you use this kind of repayment. And there's a set amount you repay every single month. Next type is extended repayment, where you pay less each payment, but there's an additional number of payments. It's typically 10 to 30 years, much longer than standard repayment, and there's higher interest rates because you're taking longer to pay off your loan. The third type is income-based repayment. So you pay based on a percentage of your discretionary income. So the company finds that out, and it takes 25 years. There's additional interest since you're taking longer, and you're not paying as much initially, but as you make more money, the more you pay. And also after 25 years, typically it is forgiven if you have a company that will let you do this. And the final type is graduated repayment, which is 25 to 30 years. Payment starts low and increases every 2 years. So as you graduate, as you move into the workforce, your payments will increase every single 2 years, and you would get paid additional interest again because you're taking much longer to pay off the loan. And there are a couple things you could do if you can't really pay off your loan initially. Deferment. So if you're still enrolled half-time in school, you're unemployed, or you meet a hardship status, you can postpone your payments for up to 3 years. It doesn't lessen the loan at all, doesn't take anything away. It just moves those payments back for 3 years. And then there's also forbearance, which is you can stop making payments temporary for illness, financial hardship, medical residency, anything like that, but it has to be approved by the loan company, whoever got you the loan from. Now I'm going to talk about budgeting and the three most important steps that I think come with budgeting. So step number one is to make a balance sheet. This is just mainly for you to kind of look at what you have, figure out what your financial status is. So you're going to take your assets, and you're going to list all your assets, everything you own. And then you're going to list all your liabilities, everything you owe. So any loans, mortgages, anything like that, everything you owe, you put in that liabilities. And then after that, you take your assets minus your liabilities, and that gives you your net worth. And that's going to really help you figure out how much you can budget and what you need to be saving up for. Next step is to establish some goals, because that's the most important part, is figuring out what you're saving for. Because if you're not saving for anything, there's no point in saving, right? And then once you figure out what you're saving for, you got to figure out what you want to spend less on, and what are your real long-term goals. So maybe you're not saving for it right now, but you're thinking of how you're going to save for that in the future, like a house or retirement, stuff like that. And I'll talk about retirement later. And the third step is just make that budget. So just look at your spending history. What I did personally is I looked at my spending history on my accounts. On mint.com really helped me out too. But you look at your spending history, you figure out what you can stop spending extra money on. So if you're going out to eat all the time, or you're spending money on delivery, stuff like that, you figure out what you can actually cut out. Then you need to figure out how much needs to be saved to meet your goals. So say your goal is that you want to buy a car. How much money do you need to have saved to buy a car? How much money do you need to put away every single month to get to the point where you can buy that car? And then the final thing is you just got to stick to that budget. It's easy to go through your account and say, okay, I spent $300 on food last month. I'm going to spend $250 this month, and then you spend $400. You didn't stick to that budget. You got to stick to the budget. And if something's unrealistic, there's no problem with making an adjustment to that budget, but you got to make sure that you're still able to meet those goals. I've mentioned it briefly, but mint.com is something I've used, and it really helped me out. It's a website. You link all your accounts. So I linked my credit card account, my student loan, my bank account, everything I have. I just linked it to that. and it shows everything you're paying, how much you're spending, when you have payments due, anything like that. And it's really helpful. It's really well organized, well put together. And the third thing I want to really talk about is saving for retirement, because honestly, at graduation, that is probably something that no one's thinking about. I know there's a couple of my buddies who I know haven't even thought about retirement or anything like that, and they're graduating in 10 days, 15 days, you know. So it's really something you got to think of. And if you start saving now, the sooner you save, the more you're going to save. If you put money into account right now, it doesn't matter if it's $500 or if it's $50. Over time, that's going to accumulate and it's going to get bigger and bigger. $50 now is 10 times better than, or not even, more than 10 times better than $50 in the future. It's also important to know your employer's policies on matching donations and stuff, matching contributions to your retirement and their pensions if they have a pension, if they're that kind of company. And that's something you can even take into consideration when you're looking for a job, is how much they match or if they have a pension or not. So there's two main types of retirement accounts that people have. One is the traditional IRA, which is where you before you pay your taxes, you put however much money you want to put into your retirement account, and then at the very end of the lifetime of your retirement account, so when you reach that retirement age of 65 or whatever it's set at when you retire, because it could be moving up, but whenever you reach that retirement age, you get to take that money out, and it gets taxed when you take it out. A second type is a lot more helpful for young people, especially people about to graduate or in the graduation stage right now, is the Roth IRA. Because when you put that money in, that's when it's taxed. So you get all your money, it gets taxed, then you put that money into your IRA, which means that the money has been taxed, but you can still put that same amount of money in after taxes. And at the very end of the term, at the end of the life of the IRA, you get to take all that money out tax-free, which is incredibly helpful, especially as a young adult when you don't have a ton of income and there's not a lot of taxes on you, right? It's because as a young adult, you don't have any dependents, you don't have anything like that. You're not making enough money to really have that be in that high tax bracket. So it's really smart to do a Roth IRA, especially as a young adult. A couple additional things with retirement: Social Security, which is basically the government's form of retirement. That's how they help old people in retirement, basically. So you pay money to the government at each paycheck, and then at 65 or whenever date you retire, 62 you get less money, but at 65 you get that money back. Money back periodically. It's not, you don't get all of it back at once, but they'll pay you based on how much you've earned over your lifetime, how much you've given to the government over your lifetime. The only problem with Social Security is the account for Social Security is empty almost. It is going down drastically, and people are worried that in about 40 years, there's no way Social Security is going to be viable anymore. So you really can't depend on Social Security to be your only form of retirement. You got to think about other things like IRAs or maybe even pensions. Pensions used to be a lot more common when people work for a company for their entire lives, and then after at retirement, the employer would just keep paying you a portion of what you've been making. And so it's not really common anymore because people don't really spend that much time at one company. Most people right now won't spend more than 5 or 10 years with one company. They'll move on, they'll find a better job, a higher paying job with a different company. So now it's really only offered with government jobs. Like my mom, she's a teacher, and she's working right now, and she thinks about 10, 15 years, she'll be able to get her pension and at a high enough percentage of her current paycheck that she can retire. So it's just the longer you work, the more they're going to give you. It's really only common with government jobs. There's some train companies or railroad companies that have pensions, and other really rare occasions there are pensions, but it's hard to find. And if they have pensions, it's a really good incentive for people to work for them. So just to go over everything again, student loan repayment, less interest is better. You don't want to be paying more than you have to be, and you want to pay off as much as you can, um, as soon as you can. You know, the less you owe, the less they can take interest out on, and the better it is for you. The less you have to pay. And then budgeting. Remember, just determine your finances, set your goals, and stick to your budget. Stick to your budget. Stick to your budget. It's very important. You can make a budget and just let it sit there and not do anything, and it won't help you at all. But if you stick to that budget, it's really going to help you in the future. It's going to help you save for what you want. And then retirement, put as much money away as your employer will match. With matching, some employers will match up to a certain amount, and you want to make sure you hit that amount all the time, because it's free money. If you don't take it, you're just giving that money away. And then Roth IRA is better when you're young. That's really big takeaway, is if you're going to start an IRA right now, right after graduation, do Roth. And that is it for my presentation. Thanks, and gig on.